So in our faith tradition, Jesus Christ is a Son of God. I know that is different than saying he's the Son of God, but that is my view of Jesus Christ.
Recently, Vivek Ramaswamy, an Indian-American businessman turned politician, went viral after telling one of his supporters during the Ohio governor's race that Jesus is not the Son of God. From a Hindu perspective, this is somewhat understandable because Hinduism is generally not exclusive toward other religions. Instead of rejecting foreign gods, it observes them and welcomes them as part of the vast pantheon of thousands of deities. That is also why anti-Christian or anti-Muslim attitudes in India tend to be more political than theological. With that background in mind, let's first hear what Vivek actually said and then explore what an authentic Catholic response to his statement would look like. Let's listen.
So I'll be very honest, it's not a hard question. So in our faith tradition, Jesus Christ is a Son of God. I know that is different than saying he's the Son of God, but that is my view of Jesus Christ. He's got our family. Do we worship in churches? Yes, we do. Is that compatible with our faith? Yes, it is. One true God in many forms. So that's different, and I understand that.
That is different. The only way to heaven is through Jesus Christ.
I think that is the path. That is a path to heaven is the way we look at it. But belief in God is what we say. Yeah. Belief in the one true God.
As you just heard, Vivek says Jesus is not the Son of God, but merely a Son of God, and not the only way to heaven, but simply one path among many. Honestly, this is Hinduism 101. Hinduism does not reject the gods of other religions, but observes them as additional deities. As the Rig Veda famously puts it, truth is one, the wise call it by many names, a worldview that naturally allows many gods and religious figures to coexist side by side. Think of it like a buffet. Hinduism welcomes every dish to the table, while Christianity insists that one particular dish is the true meal everything else points to. A buffet is wonderful for variety, but if you are truly hungry for the deepest truth, you need more than just options. You need the real thing. And that is exactly what Christianity claims Jesus is. Not just one item on the menu, but the bread of life itself. This is why in India, you will often find Hindus visiting churches, praying to saints, honoring the Virgin Mary, praying to Jesus, so on and so forth. There is something admirable in that openness. However, the problem is that when every god is just another option on a long list, the most important question, who is truly God, slowly stops mattering. This is why intense theological debate is far more common in Christianity than in Hinduism. Doctrine matters in Christianity, and the early church fought enormous battles over questions like, who is Jesus? Is he truly God? Is he man or God? So on and so forth. Entire councils were called because Christianity is built on the conviction that God has definitely revealed himself through Jesus Christ. So can Christians simply accept the Hindu understanding of Jesus as merely a Son of God? Let's listen.
So the claim of Catholic Christianity is that God, whose existence I think can be known through reason, God has revealed to us, not just in many and fragmentary ways, but in the fullness of time, I'm quoting the letter to the Hebrews now, in the fullness of time, he's spoken to us through his Son, which means through his Logos, through his Word, so that God, in an unsurpassably efficacious way, has spoken himself in Christ Jesus. Moreover, in the resurrection of Jesus from the dead, Jesus claimed to be the Logos, to be divine, was ratified. I think when you take all that into consideration, you say, well, there is something that's unsurpassable, therefore, about the revelation contained in Christianity.
As Bishop Barron clearly explains, we as Christians do not believe that Jesus is merely a Son of God or simply one of the many ways to heaven. We believe that Jesus is the Son of God and the way to heaven. This is precisely why C.S. Lewis famously argued that Jesus cannot be reduced to just another good moral teacher. A man who claimed the things Jesus claimed is either Lord, liar, or lunatic, but certainly not just another spiritual option sitting quietly in humanity's religious supermarket. Now, this naturally raises a question that many of you are probably already thinking about. Isn't it arrogant for Christianity to claim that Jesus is the only true God and the only way to salvation? After all, billions of people across the world are born into other religions through absolutely no fault of their own. Many are sincerely raised in different traditions and may never encounter Christianity in a convincing or meaningful way. So does that mean all these people are automatically condemned simply because they never explicitly believed in Jesus? That is exactly the question Bishop Barron addresses next. Let's listen.
Yeah, well, my view is that of Vatican II. And Vatican II is not a great novelty there. It reflects, moves within the great tradition. Namely that in all the great religious traditions and religious philosophies and so on, you can find elements of truth. You can find truth to some degree. You can find rays of light, and that seems obvious to me. I mean, there's no religious tradition. There are a lot of, let's say, silly, fringe sort of, religious expressions, but think of the mainstream religious expressions in the human race. If there was nothing true in them, there was nothing good or beautiful or valuable, they would never have survived. They would never have fed people for so long. So the church, I think, very gratefully acknowledges these facts. But the fullness of truth, the fullness of it, in that sense, the one true religion, it doesn't mean all the other ones are simply false. It means they participate in the truth to a lesser degree.
As Bishop Barron beautifully explains, the major religions of the world all contain genuine elements of truth. According to Catholic teaching, these religions participate in varying degrees in the fullness of truth that is ultimately found in Jesus Christ. In other words, even people raised in entirely different religious traditions can still respond to the truth and goodness that God has made available to them through their culture, conscience, and upbringing. So if a person sincerely tries to live according to the truth they have received, striving for virtue, seeking goodness, justice, mercy, and integrity, the Catholic Church does not believe God simply says, "That is not good enough because you do not explicitly know my name." God is not a bureaucrat hunting for technicalities to condemn people. Catholicism teaches that God judges every person with both perfect justice and perfect mercy. That is why the Second Vatican Council clearly taught that even non-Christians, including people of other religions, and in some cases even atheists, can be saved if, through no fault of their own, they do not fully know Christ, yet sincerely follow their conscience and genuinely seek truth and goodness. Of course, the church still firmly believes that all salvation ultimately comes through Jesus Christ, whether a person fully realizes it in his life or not. The reason the Catholic Church holds such a nuanced position is straightforward. Getting certain beliefs about God wrong does not automatically make a person deserving of condemnation. People are shaped by their culture, family, and upbringing, and a person can sincerely seek God while still attacking the fullness of truth. Bishop Barron illustrates this beautifully in the next clip. Let's listen.
Now, let me give an analogy for this, maybe. So, do you remember that scene in the beginning of Good Will Hunting, the famous film where the professor at MIT puts this complex formula or equation or something, problem on the board, and he challenges the students, can anyone solve this? And the students all try in different ways, and the star of the movie solves it. But my point is this: is there one correct answer to that problem? Well, yeah, there is. There's one perfectly correct, adequate answer. But might a professor at MIT, or bring it down to grade school math if you want, might a professor say, yeah, the answer you gave, that's not correct, but it's close. It's getting there. You did a lot of it correctly, And then another one, yeah, that's good and that's good, but no, you see how you're falling short of the full answer. And then maybe there's some that, no, that's just ridiculous. No, you're not even in the ballpark. You're not even close to solving it. Or maybe some never even tried. My point is, you can say there's the one correct answer. Yeah, that's right. But you don't have to, therefore, simply denigrate every other answer. You can say, no, to varying degrees, they approach the fullness of the correct answer. Now, let me just stay with that analogy because it helps me a little bit. So there I'm looking at, major problem and finding the solution. That's putting the stress all on us, that we're going to strive to figure this out, and some get it and some don't, right? But let's suppose the guy that writes the equation for you and watches as you try to solve it, at some point gives you the answer and says, no, this is actually the answer. And I realize that none of you is really going to get this completely right. And I now want to reveal the answer to you. And I'm the one who posed the problem. So I know the solution to it, and I want to give it to you. Now we're getting into the realm of faith as opposed to mere reason. If the puzzle is, let's say, human life, the meaning of it all, or whatever you want to say, that's the puzzle, that's the conundrum. And we're all striving to figure it out. And some are getting closer than others, right? But then in the fullness of time, the one who gave us the conundrum also deigned to give us the answer to it, revealed to us the answer. Well, then I would say, yeah, that's it. That's the right answer, And that would be that's the one true answer was given to me by the one who originally posed the conundrum. Now we're getting in the ballpark of what we mean by a revealed religion accepted in faith, you know. Now, once that answer is given, can I strive to understand it more fully using my reason? Of course. That's called theology, right? Now, fides quaerens intellectum, faith seeking understanding. So once the answer was given, maybe it's like, I'm not really bright enough to really see why that's the answer. But now having studied it more, now I get it. Now I see why, yes, that is the answer. See what I'm doing here, Brandon? In a way, I'm trying to just get at this thing from different angles because it's, in a way, a notoriously complex problem. There isn't like a neat single argument that sums it up, but there's different ways of approaching this problem.
That analogy points directly to the fundamental difference between Christianity as a revealed religion and most other religious traditions. Christianity is not simply a philosophy that human beings gradually discovered through their own intelligence and reasoning. Christianity is built on divine revelation, meaning God himself entered human history and directly revealed truths about who he is and what his plan for humanity is. Because of that, there are certain truths Christians accept by faith, even when the human mind cannot fully comprehend them on its own. Now, this does not mean Christianity dismisses reason. Quite the opposite. Catholicism carries one of the richest intellectual traditions in all of human history, spanning philosophy, theology, science, logic, and rigorous debate. Think of Thomas Aquinas, who brilliantly demonstrated that human reason itself can point toward the existence of God. But Catholicism also honestly recognizes the limits of human reason. At a certain point, divine revelation goes beyond what the human mind could ever fully discover on its own. Eventually, there must be a leap of faith, not a blind leap into irrationality, but a trusting and reasonable response to what God has personally revealed about himself. This is exactly why Bishop Barron often reminds us that Christianity is a religion of both faith and reason. Reason can take you very far, but revelation takes you even further. And with that in mind, Bishop Barron addresses one of the final objections that is perhaps the most common one raised in today's world. Why can't Christians simply worship their own God, mind their own business, and allow everyone else to practice whatever religion they choose, without feeling the need to convince everyone?
Because it's not up to me, because the Lord Jesus Christ said, go and preach the gospel to all nations. So I'm under a missionary command. I can, if someone is finding joy and peace in their religion, I mean, great. I have nothing against that. But I've got an obligation to preach the gospel. And I do think the gospel is the fullness of life and joy, and I want to share that with everybody. So it doesn't mean I'm going to become this obnoxious, imperialistic jerk, who's trying to impose my religion on everybody. So that's the caricature of our postmodern time. And anyone that claims that they have religious truth is ipso facto going to be a bore. No, I hope I'd always do it in love, but it's not just up to me. I've been commanded by the one that I claim is Lord to go and preach to all nations. He didn't say just preach to your own culture or preach to your fellow believers or preach to people that you like. He said, preach to all nations. And if he is the Logos and not just one philosopher among many, well, of course, everyone is meant to belong to him. If he's the Logos of God, if there's a philosopher that I think is great, let's say I like William James or I like Thomas Aquinas, or fine, I'll share that with people, but I'm not under some existential obligation to make everybody a strict Thomist. But I am under existential obligation to draw people toward the Logos. When the Son of Man is lifted up, he will draw all people to himself. Paul, like a madman, is racing around the Eastern Mediterranean. I'm just announcing the Lordship of Jesus. I want to go to Rome and I want to go to Spain. And for Paul, that meant I want to go to Timbuktu. I want to go to the end of the world to announce this. So that's the obligation I have as a missionary. And see, what I don't appreciate is when that is automatically interpreted as oppression. Maybe we talked about this, Brandon, because it rings a bell as I'm looking at you now, that years ago I'm in Chicago, and it was a Jewish-Christian dialogue, and Cardinal George was there, and he was talking about evangelization, and I had just been named by Cardinal George to do this work in evangelization. And one of the Jewish interlocutors got up and he said, I just have to say it, when I hear the word evangelization, I think genocide.
Finally, I would like to end with this. God is not a bureaucrat hunting for technicalities to condemn people. I hope this video is helpful. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. God bless you.